Hello, everybody, and either welcome or welcome back to my podcast. As always, if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Oh my god, has this been a week? Is it just me, or does it feel like last Monday was like a month ago and not a week ago? Like, this week just feels like it was the longest week, and it was just such a huge dumpster fire. And so I'm going to go back and kind of start where we left off on the last weekly roundup. And I'll go ahead and say this particular episode, we're probably just going to be like doing a little bit of batting cleanup here, because I did already do another episode kind of giving my expanded thoughts on the Mueller Barr situation. And I also did do an episode touching on the current sort of controversy scandal thing going on the Twitters, which is the Pete Buttigieg Slate piece on is he gay enough, basically. So I've kind of already covered both of those topics in depth, so I will touch a bit on the Mueller report because there is a little bit of new news on that front. But basically, I think I've really covered a lot of what has gone on in this past week, as insane as this past week has been. Like, we started off last weekend with the Barr letter dropping and just the fallout from that and just everything that's happened. And then on Monday, this last Monday, the Jesse Smollett situation flared back up again, and that has been just such a dumpster fire. And so this whole week has just been pure insanity. But again, to back it up a little bit, Barr did release another letter pertaining to the Mueller report. And what he said in the new letter, and it is a little more expanded than the original letter, is that the plan as of right now is to release the Mueller report in mid-April. So probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I imagine we're going to be seeing that. They are still in the process of going over the report and doing any kind of redacting or anything that needs to be done. He did say the report is about 400 pages long, outside of, tables and indices and stuff like that. And that the White House, despite their request, will not be getting a privileged preview, which means the White House will be seeing whatever there is to see at the same time all of the rest of us will be able to see it. And Barr did reiterate that he does plan on making this public, not only to Congress, but to the American people. So we will all have some version of the Mueller report in the next couple of weeks. And he also did say in the letter that he is open to testifying in front of Senate or in front of the House or whoever ends up convening the committee to have the hearing. And it seems like right now it is tentatively penciled in for May 1st that he would be testifying in front of the Senate. But like I said, that's still kind of up in the air. And of course, there are still people who are pissed off about this. There are people that wanted the report by April 2nd. And if they don't get the report by April 2nd, then they will take further steps. But it's something that's still a work in process. But we do kind of have a bit of a time frame. So I'm sure once the Mueller report is released to everybody, we will be discussing this more in detail and in whatever form that we end up getting it, however redacted it may be or may not be. Who knows? We'll find out in the next couple of weeks. So at least there is a concrete timeline as to when to be expecting to see this report. But before we leave off of this, a topic that I didn't talk about in my last episode where I discussed the Mueller Barr situation, and that is this particular narrative that started coalescing around the original Barr letter. And that is this idea that how could he have written this letter saying what is in the report? And for what it's worth, he wasn't saying the entirety of what was in the report. He was giving his summary of the major points of the report. Everybody was like, how in the world could he possibly have done this in 48 hours? Because that's the time frame between everybody finding out that Mueller handed in the report and the Barr letter. Why does anybody think that Barr and Rosenstein and the DOJ found out about what was in the report when Mueller handed it in? Like, I'm quite sure that Mueller was probably reading them in on this as soon as he started figuring out that, like, okay, I'm getting ready to wrap this up. And I had posted this out on Twitter. My theory is that, remember about a month to 6 weeks ago, you started seeing rumors and whispers that people should start managing their expectations about what is going to be in this report. I think that that is the point where Mueller started sharing his findings with the DOJ, with Barr, with Rosenstein, and that somebody in there started leaking that sort of kind of managing expectations sort of thing. And to the idea that Mueller would have read Barr in on this, if Mueller's intention was always to kick this over to Barr as far as the obstruction of justice thing, and I have seen reporting from NBC saying that Mueller told Barr that that was going to be his decision in early March, like March 1st, March 2nd. He told Barr that he would not be ruling on the obstruction of justice charge and that he would be kicking it to Barr to make a decision. Then the 48-hour narrative kind of falls apart, and then now you really are looking at Barr having had 4 to 6 weeks of lead time and knowing what was going to be in the report in order to start arranging himself to do what he needs to do. So I just think the 48-hour narrative is kind of bullshit and kind of like grasping at straws to try to hold on some little last bit of hope, because, I mean, of course Mueller would have started reading him in. Like, that would be insane to not. But anyway, moving on to the story that everybody and their mama and their grandma and their babies and their nephews are talking about, and that is Jussie Smollett. So, this past Monday, out of the clear blue yonder, it was released that the Illinois District Attorney's Office has decided to just not only drop all the charges against Jussie Smollett, which, to back up, just in case you don't remember, a grand jury had actually handed down 16 felony charges in relationship to his little supposed hate crime. And these were charges that related to obstruction of justice, lying to police, stuff like that. 16 felony charges a grand jury handed down. And so the Illinois DA decided that, nope, poof, it's all gone. And not that he pled out to anything. I want to make that entirely clear in case it's something that hasn't been made entirely clear. This is not a plea deal. He did not plea out to anything. He did not plead guilty to anything. This is not anything of that sort. Illinois DA decided that they were going to just drop all the charges, and over and beyond that, they're either going to expunge his record or seal it, which I've seen both of those terms used. I don't know if there is some kind of ambiguity as to which it's going to be, or if people are just using those two things interchangeably. Legally speaking, they're not interchangeable. Sealing your records versus expunging your records are two different things. But I think, from what I've been able to understand, it is going to be an expungement, which means that it's, as far as your criminal record is concerned, if you have a charge expunged, it's like it never happened. It's like nothing ever happened. It's not that, like, you have charges and it's like behind a seal and somebody, like a judge, would have to approve somebody to unseal those records, but those records are still there. Expunged means it's gone. Finito. Bye. Foof. So, you would probably be asking, okay, so what in the actual fuck just happened? Which is what everybody was asking when this dropped, because we were all just like, excuse me? But wait, it gets worse. It gets so much worse. The deal, I guess, I don't know what else you would call this, is that in exchange for these charges being dropped and his record being expunged, he voluntarily forfeits his $10,000 worth of bail and is sentenced to community service already served. Which, he served a little bit of community service, like, since this has all gone out, like an hour or two or something like that. But mainly, the issue that everybody has is the $10,000. Now, here's my thing. if you are genuinely innocent of something and it is a genuine, honest situation where a DA's office decides to drop all charges against you and expunge your record, they don't keep your fucking bail money. And you don't let them keep your bail money. You'd be like, hey, can I have my $10,000 back now? It's not something where they say, oh, we're just going to keep you 10 grand and we'll make this stuff go away. You know what this is, people. Come on. This is a fucking payoff. I mean, there's no other way to parse this at this point. And at no point has anybody in the DA's office handled this in any way that makes any kind of legal sense. And what's even funnier about this is that they did not give Chicago PD or Rahm Emanuel, who is still mayor of Chicago, I think for like another 15 minutes, did not give them a heads up at all. Chicago PD found out the same way we all found out, and they were pissed. And Rahm Emanuel was pissed because basically the DA's office just threw them under the bus. They took everything that Chicago PD just worked on and basically threw it in the fucking garbage, didn't give them a heads up, didn't say boo to them. And so there was this press conference where the Chicago head of police and Rahm Emanuel and a couple of other people came out and were like, this is nonsense. Like, this is bullshit. Basically, Rahm Emanuel, I believe, said it was a whitewashing of justice. Which, I mean, I can totally understand why Chicago PD is pissed off right now. Because if you remember when this was all going down, and when it started becoming kind of apparently obvious that this little hate crime was a hoax, they were pissed. Like, they expended resources on this as if it were a real crime. Like, they put work into this, and now it's like they're very angry. Very, very angry. And a funny thing that happened that I don't think got enough press is that one of the news outlets in Chicago filed a FOIA request to get the records of when Chicago PD questioned the Nigerian brothers. And you can't really call this a leak because it wasn't a leak. It was a response to a FOIA request. But I don't think Chicago PD has ever responded to a FOIA request as fast as they responded to that one. Like, we're probably talking like hours, where normally you're talking like months. So Chicago PD is super eager to get their side of the story out in the public, however it is they have to do it. So if anybody's listening to this and you got the juice to go file a FOIA request over with the Chicago Police Department on anything related to this, they're happy to give you some information right now if you want it. They're ready. They got it all packaged up, ready to go for you. So I just thought that was really, really funny. But what isn't really, really funny about this is just the absolute blatant just payoff. Like, that's all this is it's a fucking payoff. You paid 10 grand to get yourself out of 16 felony charges, which, I mean, I'll keep it real. I will keep it 100 right now. If I were Jesse Smollett and I had the spare 10 grand kicking around and you came to me saying that I will make all these charges disappear, you just forfeit this $10,000 and we'll do some little cosmetic community service bullshit, I'd think about it. I'd think long and hard about it. And y'all know you would too. Because if you're facing down jail time, which, I mean, if this went to trial, who the hell knows? I mean, that's 16 felony charges. Who the fuck knows what happened on trial? And I don't know if a plea deal was ever offered, but I mean, if that was the situation and somebody came at you like that, you know, you'd think about it too. What I wouldn't be doing, which is what Smollett has been doing, is going out here out in these streets and pretending like I am some kind of innocent martyr. No. Dude. No. If I took that kind of deal, I would at least have the grace to admit that that's what I fucking did. I wouldn't go out here and be giving press conferences talking about how, oh, I've been vindicated, I've been exonerated, which, by the way, actually, the DA's office has said that they did not exonerate him of the charges. It's like this weird Trump situation where you're not exonerated, but you're exonerated. But this is like way worse than that because Trump didn't pay his way out of the Mueller investigation. Unlike Smollett, who's really looking like you paid your way out of this situation. I wouldn't be out here pretending like I'm some kind of innocent victim of all of this. I would at best keep my mouth shut and go sit down somewhere until this all blows over. Or I would at least be honest about it. I would come out and be like, yeah, I just forfeited my $10,000 bail to beat this case. And that's fucked up. And I will admit that's fucked up. But can we possibly talk about why that's fucked up? Can we talk about the two-tier justice system where I was able to buy my way out of this situation because I had the kind of money where I can just be like, keep the 10 grand, it's no big deal to me. Unlike pretty much everybody else in this country who doesn't have those kind of resources. But the funny thing is, we can't have that conversation in this certain instance because, of course, we can't talk about how a homosexual black man has more privilege in this situation than a straight white man would because one of those people has money and the other one doesn't. We can't talk about that right now, which that's fucked up in and of itself. Like, if you want to buy into the whole idea of privilege, the biggest privilege you can have in this country is money. Money can trump almost anything else. So, but again, we can't talk about that in this situation because we can't admit that the gay black man wasn't a victim of the system because he was able to buy his way out of a bullshit situation of his own making. Like, you perpetrated a hoax hate crime and you just bought your way out of it. Like, what the fuck? That needs to be discussed. And it's like, nobody really wants to talk about that. Except for, me and those of us here in this particular movement who aren't beholden to some kind of intersectional politics and have no problem saying that about a gay black man. Because you know what? That don't even matter here right now. It doesn't matter. You tried to make it matter. You perpetrated a hate crime against yourself to try to make that matter. But no, that's not okay. There's nothing about this that is okay. And it just keeps getting more and more Chicago by the millisecond. Because the DA that was covering this, Kim Foxx, had originally said that she had recused herself from the case, allegedly. And I'm going to use the word allegedly because she has now said that she never did. And she was basically just using the word, just conversationally. Not that she actually recused herself, which is a big deal because she was in contact with Smollett's family. And she was in contact with certain people who had ties to the Obamas. Not trying to put them out there like that, but this is how the story breaks down, is that somebody from their camp contacted her, asking her basically to do a favor on this particular case. I mean, this is just, it's so fucked up. It's a perfect example of privilege, but the kind of privilege that is actual privilege. Not based on your skin color, not based on your sexual orientation, not based on your gender, but based on what you got in your bank account and who you know and what your position is in this society and who wants to help you versus who doesn't want to help you. But like I said, we can't talk about any of that in this particular case because of who Jussie Smollett is. So, yeah. And before we leave out of this, and I still have a couple more thoughts, I do want to point out that everything that is going on in Illinois right now, in Chicago, in Illinois, has no bearing on the FBI case against Smollett, which that involves the letter that was sent to him allegedly, like that hate letter that was sent to him. That's being handled by the FBI because it went through the mail, and that means it's a federal offense, which means the FBI gets involved. None of this has any bearing on that. And for what it's worth, there are various agencies and groups and organizations who have expressed an interest in investigating exactly what the hell just went on in the Illinois DA's office that this deal went down. And it seems like at this point there are actually some questions about the legality of it, whether it was actually legal to make this deal with him. Obviously, there's a lot of ethical concerns. Even Trump has said that the FBI and the DOJ should be investigating this, which, of course, I mean, it's not really for Trump to be opining on this, but our tweeter-in-chief has opined on it, so that is how massive this situation has gotten. So it's a total shitstorm, dumpster fire, just like everything in Chicago related to the legal system always ends up being. And it didn't have to be this way, and now it is this way, and so it's this big to-do. But here are my thoughts on the topic, and because a lot of people have tried to make certain points that I do not think are valid. Now, if this was a situation where this was actually a plea deal, where if he just pled guilty and, say, paid back the city of Chicago what they spent, which, for what it's worth, the city of Chicago has said that they have spent $130,000 on this particular investigation. I can believe that. I mean, this is a very high-profile investigation involving a famous person. There was a lot of pressure brought to bear. A lot of things had to happen very quickly. And of course, if you want something to happen quickly, that means you have to throw money at it to make it happen faster than it normally would. So I can buy that number. But if this was a situation where he pled guilty and, say, promised to pay back the $130,000 to Chicago PD and then was sentenced to X amount of community service, I'd be fine with that. I would be perfectly cool with that. I have never been of the opinion that he should serve jail time for this, because if you are going to be principally honest and say that people should not be thrown into cages for nonviolent offenses, that applies to this too. However you may happen to feel about what kind of punishment he should be enduring, he should not be going to jail for this. Nobody got hurt. There's really no victim here outside of Chicago PD, which is why I say if this was a plea deal where he decided, well, not decided, obviously, if it was decided for him, that he would pay restitution to them, okay, then the victim is compensated. The victim is satisfied. Chicago PD would have their money back. And then you perform the community service to show contrition, to show that you have learned something from this situation. And that's it. Like, I'd be cool with that. I would be A-okay with that. And if we're being honest, I think most everybody who's listening to this, and most everybody who is a rational person, would be cool with that. I mean, there is the lock him up crowd, but I mean, that's a reactionary thing, and it's kind of that goes back to this really stupid, cynical, owning the libs bullshit, where, oh, well, they said that this person should be locked up, so we're going to say this person should be locked up. It's like, no, if you are going to take the stance that people shouldn't be in jail for nonviolent offenses, then that applies to this too. I mean, that just is what it is. But what happened here was not that plea deal, which, for what it's worth, I don't even understand why they didn't go down that road. Like, this could have been so simple. This could have been so fucking easy to handle, but they've handled it in the dumbest way humanly possible. That being said, this was somebody paying their way out of the system. And there is a two-tiered criminal justice system in this country, and this case proves it. I mean, if you got the money to beat the charge, then you can. And that's exactly what he did. And, I mean, there should be a discussion about that. Because that's not really how the criminal justice system should be working. But clearly, that's how it worked, especially in this case. But I'm sure we will be talking about this case again in the future, because like I said, there are a lot of people who are really pissed off about this. And I'm very interested to see exactly where this goes and how this ends up. So I don't think this is entirely over. I think there's still some more shoes to drop on this one. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be discussing it again. But before I wrap up this episode, there is an incident that I do want to talk about that is kind of funny, and so maybe we can end this on a funny note. And that is that Mitch McConnell kind of trolled the hell out of Senate Democrats by bringing the Green New Deal legislation to a vote. Because, I mean, yeah, why wouldn't you, right? Like, if you like this legislation so much, hell yeah, let's vote on it. And so that's exactly what he did. And what Democrats did, instead of being happy about this, or being any kind of, like, intellectually honest about it, I suppose, they decided to throw a complete fucking hissy fit and vote present. Like, everybody voted present. And it's like, he just got you. Cocaine Mitch just got you so hard. And it's so funny because it's like, why, I'm sorry, I thought this is what you wanted. And so as soon as Mitch McConnell brought it up and said, okay, we're going to vote on it, all of a sudden it became this big to-do about how somehow this is some kind of trick or a trap, or he's rushing this to a vote and he's not letting us discuss it on the floor. And I'm just like, well, why do you want to? I thought this is what you wanted. This is the bill you wanted. This is the legislation you wanted. Here's the vote. And so instead of actually voting it up or down, they decided to throw a little hissy fit, voted present, and of course the bill did not pass, obviously, because they didn't have enough votes to say yes, because Democrats threw a little hissy fit. But it was just funny in the way of exposing the hypocrisy of Democrats on this particular topic. The Green New Deal was never meant to be something to be voted on. Obviously, judging from their reaction, they never intended for this to actually come to a floor vote. So what the fuck was the point of it then? Other than to grandstand and to try to say that you care about the environment and la-da-da-da-da, and I support all these things, but no you don't. Because when push came to shove, nobody wanted to put their name to it. And it was funny. It was funny to watch. And just the sheer hypocrisy, like I said, of Democrats on this topic is worth remembering. Like, every time that somebody wants to push some kind of climate change bullshit, just always point out, like, you had a chance to vote on this and you decided not to. Not even that y'all voted no on it, it's that you decided not to fucking vote at all. So, yeah, the whole Green New Deal and the whole climate change thing is utter and complete bullshit, as proven last week. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you did make it this far, thank you as always. And if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Take care, and until next time.